So, making videos and talking about a subject without taking into consideration the other side's response is completely fucking moronic. In other equally shocking news, the sun rose. So, allegations have been going back and forth towards Pyrocynical for the last couple of weeks regarding some sexually explicit conversations with a guy named Ivory, who was underage at the time of these conversations occurring. Now, if you don't know the full story, I would definitely check out Pyro's response that he just dropped recently, as well as some of the other videos made by various commentary channels. Although, I'm going to explain why a lot of these videos are completely fucking retarded, but I'll get into that later. So first, the allegations themselves. The allegations were that Pyro and Ivory were messaging about some really degenerate furry shit. Honestly, I'm kind of depressed enough as is, so I'd really rather not go into any more detail. The main point was that Pyro was talking with Ivory and saying some really creepy and messed up stuff, while knowing that Ivory was, in fact, underage. The evidence was pretty slim, especially at first, when the allegations first came out. One of the major problems with this whole allegation of Pyro being a predator is that Ivory is the absolute fucking worst at giving any kind of evidence whatsoever. First, a lot of his evidence was just him scrolling through a Discord log while barely making any kind of effort to pause the video or maybe even explain some context. And second, he took so long to bring more damning evidence to light about an event that happened years ago. A lot of people were so quick to jump on the Pyro hate bandwagon without ever considering these two things. Even the evidence that was damning was stuff like Ivory mentioning his age on Twitter, which I actually couldn't even tell if guys like Turkey Tom were being genuine when this piece of evidence came up, because I think it's kind of a meme at this point that Pyrocynical is always having his Twitter account suspended, especially at the time that this furry roleplay stuff that Pyro was doing was happening with Ivory. Like, did it seriously not cross these people's minds that Pyro just simply didn't see these guys' tweets? I only mention this because so many people use it as proof that Pyro just had to have known Ivory's age, when it doesn't really prove much of anything. I mean, it does if you view it only from Ivory's perspective, but if you actually examine it from the perspective of someone like Pyro, who probably follows hundreds of people on Twitter and might not see every single tweet that Ivory puts out, it actually makes a lot more sense. Now, to be fair, for the sake of being thorough, should Pyro have ascertained Ivory's age? Yes. Absolutely. I know Pyro mentions this in his response video, but I feel the need to say it here too so I don't come off as just being biased and being in favor of only Pyro. If you're going to talk about the degenerate furry trash that Pyro was talking about in these Discord conversations, yeah, you should have made sure that the person you were talking to isn't a minor. I don't think that part is really excusable on Pyro's end, but being fair, Ivory never did directly tell Pyro his age during the time frame in which these conversations occurred. Again, this isn't meant to excuse Pyro's behavior, but it is meant to explain where he was coming from. Now, taking a step back and looking at some of the fallout from these allegations, I'm appalled at simply how little critical thinking and nuance that some people are actually using when talking about this situation. Hell, most people haven't even bothered to wait for Pyro's response. They just make videos on one side of the situation without ever considering the fact that maybe, just maybe, we should wait to hear what Pyro has to say before we start making these flippant judgment calls. This is something that really pisses me off, because in all of these videos talking about the allegations themselves, I rarely ever see them mention Pyro's Reddit post where he explains a lot of his behavior, and explains that not every action that was taken by Pyro was done out of malice. For example, I remember Diesel Patch's video on the subject, and he used the fact that Pyro was trying to mass delete Discord messages as proof that Pyro had something to hide. And to be fair, he did. He was trying to hide the fact that he was a fucking degenerate, but it wasn't anything beyond that. And the fact that Diesel Patches, who's usually pretty rational, didn't consider this is kind of abysmal, to be honest. Other channels are also doing this. Turkey Tom definitely stands out as one of the biggest offenders of using these instances of Pyro doing something a little bit odd and then interpreting that as meaning that Pyro is 100% guilty of something. And to the people saying that guys like Turkey Tom didn't say that Pyro was 100% guilty, pull your heads out of your asses for a second. Why else would these guys be using one-sided evidence from someone who's absolutely fucking garbage at bringing out any kind of decent evidence, and even uses words like grooming when referring to Pyro's behavior without actually knowing what those words mean? It's biased reporting, plain and simple. Whether these guys had malicious intent with making all of these videos, or were just tunnel visioned into thinking that there was absolutely nothing Pyro could say to explain things a bit, they still royally messed up here. Now, in Ivory's defense, he was probably under quite a bit of pressure, and considering the fact that he was just a teenager at the time that all this happened, I don't think it's unreasonable to say that he just didn't know how to handle the situation he put himself in. I don't think he had malicious intent going after Pyro with what little evidence he did have. I think he's just an idiot. And the situation blowing up in the way that it did cannot be solely blamed on Ivory. The people who were making videos on this whole situation, not cross-referencing any of the defenses Pyro was making, refusing to put any kind of nuanced thinking into the evidence that was presented by Ivory, they absolutely hold most of the blame here. These people who have hundreds of thousands of subscribers and have quite the audience really fucked up up here because they refuse to hear both sides before making their videos and giving their takes. Again, I doubt this was done out of any sort of malice against Pyro, but man, this just makes all of us in the commentary community look like absolute retards. And rightfully so. So, my friends, what did we learn from this situation? Well, honestly, it's that everyone here needs to step back and hold themselves accountable. On Pyro's side, he should have verified Ivory's age, plain and simple. He mentions this in his video, and he holds himself responsible and accountable for that, and I think that's awesome. I think that's what everyone should do when it comes to apology videos. I know this stuff happened years ago, and he just may not have known any better, but it was still really messed up that he didn't hold himself to the very basic courtesy of asking about the person's age. Especially when he was talking about the really degenerate and messed up stuff that we all saw in those Discord logs. On Ivory's end, he should have been much clearer in giving evidence. I don't think this is debatable, to be honest. I think a lot of this confusion, especially at the beginning when these allegations first dropped, could have been avoided if Ivory was just better at presenting the evidence he had. On that note, he also should have done it way sooner. I don't know why he waited until now to come forward with this. Maybe he had cold feet. Maybe he was just afraid of the backlash, which is completely understandable, but he definitely should have come forward with this way sooner. Like, the most he did prior to now was discussing the chats he had with other people who knew Pyro, but he never went public with anything until now, which I feel like in the eyes of a lot of people really hurts his credibility. If he was afraid that he wasn't going to be taken seriously before, he sure as hell didn't help himself by waiting this long to come forward and with such convoluted evidence. And on everyone else's end, with everyone else being the people who were making videos on this situation for the past couple of weeks, most notably Diesel Patches and Turkey Tom, why the hell no one put in the very minimal effort of cross-referencing the things Pyro said in the statement he put on his subreddit defending himself is beyond me. You can talk about the situation without making very bold statements such as Pyro is 100% definitely in the wrong. The fact that people were making these claims while knowing only one side of the story just shows how moronic some of these people are. And these are people with huge audiences and a lot of influence who are also doing this really stupid stuff. Get off of your high horses, stop caring so much about the views, and start giving more of a shit about the facts, especially when you're playing with people's careers. Anyway guys, that'll be it for this video. Hope y'all enjoyed it. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe for more, and I'll catch you all next time. Peace, guys.